beautiful daughters, 7, 5, and 2, which for some reason people in my life think I'm not completely happy with. If I had $1 for every time I heard, "I bet you wish you had a son," or "Are you ever gonna try again for a boy?" I'd be a millionaire. Look, if my wife got pregnant again and had a boy, my reaction would be the same as the other 3. In my opinion, as long as your child is healthy, who honestly cares? Oh, props to this dad. I never hear guys talk like this. It's so refreshing to hear. The worst and most annoying people towards my wife, give me a son, are my sister-in-law, 29, who has 4 boys and now pregnant with her 5th child, and my mother-in-law. Last Sunday, we were at my mother-in-law's for Sunday lunch, and my sister-in-law said after dessert to come out to the back garden as they had a balloon to announce the gender of their new baby. Well, long story short, she's having another boy. After everyone congratulated her, she made her way to us and said, "I bet you wish just once it would be blue for you guys," then turned to my wife and said, "It's never too late to try again." It royally pissed me off because my oldest was in earshot. I turned to her and said, "Well, actually, Alice, I wouldn't give one of my daughters dirty socks for what boys were in Europe, and the fact that you base your love on your child's gender says a lot about you as a mother. I don't need a son, so I suggest you take your advice and stick it." She stuttered for a second and then burst into tears, saying I was putting her and her kids down. The mood was ruined, and after that we left. Since then, my in-law said she deserves an apology, and it's been a long-running joke, so I shouldn't have driven my sister-in-law to tears. Wait, what is it called? Can't take what you... Eat what you dish? Can't take what you dish? I can't remember the saying.
Storytime about how my fiance cheated on me with my niece who's 18 years old. Disclaimer, this is not my storytime, I sent me on Instagram. My fiance and I have been together a total of 3 years. We got engaged exactly 1 year ago. When we first met, he was totally obsessed with me. He begged me to go out on dates with him, but I never said yes. We met through friends, and my friends ended up giving him my address. So this man would send me gifts every single week. Started out with flowers, then he would send me champagne, then he started sending me designer bags. When I told my parents all of this, they were really impressed by his wealth. And ultimately, they convinced me to call him and thank him for the gifts. And when I did that, he begged me to go on a date with him. I was scared of being impolite, so I said yes. But looking back, I should have listened to my instinct and not gone on the date. We went on a total of 3 dates. And after that, he started talking about marriage. I told him it was way too soon and that I didn't even know if I had feelings for him. But of course, he insisted for months. My parents really pressured me into saying yes to being his girlfriend, so I did. After 6 months, I was finally starting to feel something for him. Here are a few reasons why I never really liked him. He was rude to all of the waiters and servers at restaurants. He talked bad about his mom and his friends to me all the time. And he would constantly talk down to other women. But like I said, finally, I was starting to like him a little bit. He asked me to marry him and everything was fine. Up until he met my 17-year-old niece. He started buying her designer bags and cell phones. Part 2 is up. Part 2 of how my fiance cheated on me with my niece. Disclaimer, it's not my story time. I was sending me on Instagram. When my fiance first met my niece, he would compliment her so much about her looks. He told her in front of my entire family that she was so beautiful and womanly for being so young. This made my family and I really uncomfortable. But my niece was super flattered. And before I knew it, he was buying her gifts. He went behind my back and bought her the latest iPhone. And then he gifted it to her at our next family event. My sister, who is my niece's mom, said no. She didn't want to accept the gift, but my niece begged her. The following weekend was my niece's birthday. That day, he gave her a Gucci purse. Once again, my sister said she couldn't accept that, but my fiance insisted. That's when he told me and my sister that he always wanted a daughter like my niece, and that he was so proud of her for doing so well in school. Obviously, he was lying. After my niece's birthday, I told my fiance to stop buying her gifts. I told him that it was incredibly inappropriate and that he needed to take them back. That's when he told me that he could do whatever he wanted and he didn't need my permission to give my niece gifts. By this point, I was falling out of love with him. This is when he started inviting my niece over to our house for dinners. He would cook lavish meals for my niece and I. This is also when he started taking her to the mall for shopping trips. And the only reason I found out was because I tracked his phone. Part 3 is up. Part 3 of how my fiance cheated on me with my young niece. When I tracked his phone, I saw that he was at the mall. I called him 5 times and he wouldn't answer his cell phone. Finally, I call my sister and I ask her if my niece is home. That's when she tells me my niece had left the house with her friends 4 hours ago. And that's exactly the amount of time that my fiance had been out of the house. I told my sister I was really concerned about the relationship between them and that we needed to look for them right away. By the way, how stupid is he not to realize that I could track him? My sister and I finally reached the mall, but they weren't inside. And we looked everywhere. We started looking through the parking garage and we finally found them. They were in his car full on making out. That's right, my 18-year-old niece and my 36-year-old fiance. My sister pulled my niece out of the car. My fiance jumped out of the car and started defending himself right away. That's when he said that my niece came on to him and that he was trying to stop her from kissing him. That's when my niece spills all the beans. She told us that for 2 weeks he had been taking her everywhere and buying her gifts, that he had even taken her to a hotel room for you know what. My sister called the cops, but the cops said they couldn't do anything about it because she was already 18. But her and I have a feeling that this all started before that. But my niece says no. My fiance, like the coward he is, he grabbed all of his stuff from our apartment that same night and left. And no, I haven't heard from him since. But I took all the money we had in our joint account. Over $200,000. Bye.
Story time about how my dad found out that I was a stripper. We love that for us, don't we? Wrong, we don't. So a little background information. I was a junior in college and I was 21 years old. And I go to a very expensive college. Actually, really expensive college. Not gonna lie, the only reason why I got to go to this college was because I got a scholarship. A very good scholarship. Now, being that I am going to such a good college, I feel like I have a lot to prove to everybody. Because I was always the straight A student and, you know, I was kind of held to very high standards because my brothers really never did anything with their lives, of course. So everything was put onto me. Well, with that being said, the little coffee shop job I had just was not cutting it anymore. Every time I would go out, I would find myself spending what felt like a ton of money, but in reality, $40 isn't a lot. I was just broke. But then I got what felt like the opportunity of a lifetime. We're gonna call this person my, quote, guardian angel, okay? Because this person saved me from a shit ton of debt and my future. So me and a couple of my friends were walking the one night to a local bar that we usually go to, and we run into this group of people. And that's where I met my, quote, guardian angel. Well, her and I really hit it off that night, and I pretty much told her about everything that was going on, including about how my life was really shit growing up. My parents were super strict, especially my dad. And then I told her that I was actually super broke and really had no money. She looked really surprised at first, as does everybody when I tell them this, because I carry myself a certain way. Like, this girl really thought that I was a trust fund baby or something. Sadly, I was not. And then she said to me, oh, well, can you dance? Now, I had took a few ballet classes when I was younger, so I'm like, yeah, I can freaking dance, you know, like, and she's like, no, I mean, do you know how to shake your ass? I was a little taken back, you know. I was like, I mean, yeah, like, I guess so. And then she's like, okay, well, you have a job. So at first, I am extremely skeptical. At first, I thought she was gonna tell me that she's a prostitute and that I was gonna be a prostitute also. But then she was telling me how she was a stripper. That kind of eased my, you know, how I was feeling a little bit. She also said that she makes more than enough money for all of her car payments, her rent, everything like that. And she was even able to take her and her boyfriend on a 2-month trip to Greece the year before. Girl. So at this point, I am way more interested than I was before. But I also had a strict ass dad, and I really had to think on this. Do I shake my ass for some money? And if I do, will my dad disown me? Probably, but yeah. But anyways, I decided to give it a shot, and I started working at the strip club. But honestly, it was probably one of the best decisions I ever made. For the next 6 months, I was making literally bank from working at the strip club. Now, obviously, you know, I had bad nights and everything like that, but still, it couldn't compare to working at that shitty ass little coffee shop. And you know what? I actually eventually started to enjoy working there way more than I thought I would. Well, my 22nd birthday rolls around, and this is around when I thought my life was over pretty much. Yeah, we'll just say that. So this is whenever my strict ass family thought that they would come to my college and surprise me for my birthday. How sweet of them. I'm joking. It's actually fucking annoying. So it was my dad, my 2 brothers, and my mother, of course. So here's the issue. They came down a day early to surprise me, I guess. And boy, did I get a surprise. The hotel they were staying at was right across from the club. But you know what? Not too bad, you know. Not like my strict God-worshipping father was literally staying right across from where I worked. Well, the night before my birthday, I'm at the club. I'm about halfway done with my shift, in the middle of dancing all over a fucking pool, trying to make money. I have to fake an injury. Why do I have to fake an injury? Only because, you know, I look up and I see my father. Yeah, definitely not one of my best moments. So at this point, I literally want to run off the stage and just go curl up in a corner and die. But I think of a more realistic thing to do. Fake an injury. I start limping off the stage. Once I get off the stage, I tell Sadie that I need to go home. I'm not feeling my best. I really need to leave. now. Well, you know, I thought she would be understanding, but she said, fine, after your walkthrough. Now, if you don't know what a walkthrough is whenever you pretty much go on the floor and you flirt with guys, you know, kind of just talk to them and stuff, just something like that. I don't know any of this stuff. I'm not a stripper, so forgive me if I say something wrong. Correct me down in the comments if you feel the need to. So at this point, I knew it was pretty much over. I really did need this job, so I wasn't about to just walk out. And I kid you not, once in the main room, it took them 20 seconds to realize that it was me walking around. And when they saw me, they just left. Like, they ran out of the place. They did not want to be there. And I was like, okay, like, what the fuck? I really thought I was in a dream because in reality, I thought my dad would have dragged me out of there and beat my ass and left me on the curb. But that's not what happened at all. So I'm kind of shook. Well, then the next day, I wake up to a knock on my door. And I definitely did not think it was my dad because I thought that he would never want to see me again. You know, his image of his perfect little angel was ruined. But of course, it was my whole family. They walked in, they gave me hugs, they wished me a happy birthday. Super sweet. The weird part was my dad and brothers were acting normal the whole entire time. Like, nothing ever happened. They didn't see anything, you know? They didn't walk in on me shaking some ass. So at that point, I was kind of thinking that I had a dream that it happened and it didn't really happen. I was starting to question myself. But also, I was kind of annoyed because my dad really hadn't said a word to me the whole entire time. So while we were sitting at my kitchen table, I decided to kind of make things more awkward because my mom had told me that they all got there last night. So I asked my dad, I was like, so what did you guys do last night? Yeah, I was that person. I was kind of annoyed because none of them would even look me in the eye. My mom answered the question for them. So eventually I waited until my mom left the room so that way I could approach the situation. But before I even said a word, my dad pulled out an envelope that had $2,500 in it. And he was like, here, this is for school and let's just forget about last night. He also ended up apologizing because he said that he didn't know how hard I was working to pay for school. But he was also really proud of me for trying to do it by myself. I was like, okay. Period. But then after that sweet moment, he was like, so, you're still planning on getting a job after school, right? Like, you know, you're not, this isn't a lifetime thing. And I was like, you know, so like, way to ruin a good moment, you know. But still, he was very accepting, so I have to be appreciative of that, you know. And on the other hand, my mother actually took it worse than he did. She was telling me about how all her other friends' daughters, you know, they work here instead of doing what I do, you know. She pretty much called me a whore every time she got the chance, so, you know, we love that for me. I mean, my dad would low-key put her in her place sometimes, but, like, it was ridiculous. Okay, so story time about how I got caught sneaking out of my house. So a little background information, I was 15 years old and a freshman in high school. And this happened about a month or so before school ended. I honestly had a pretty normal life before this happened. There was nothing exciting or crazy going on, no drama or anything like that. Except there was this one junior that I had a huge crush on, and we're going to call him Kevin. Kevin was known for going after freshmen. I mean, we all know that one guy, but I thought he was really interested in me. Why? Because I was stupid. Yeah. Well, with that being said, I was never really allowed to see Kevin because my mom was extremely strict since she had my sister whenever she was 17. I was never really allowed to see him outside of school unless like we were in a big group of people or my mom just didn't know that he was going to be there, or any guy for that matter. So like I said, she had my sister whenever she was 17, so she would never let us go out with boys, be out after dark. She was just super protective. Like, we weren't even allowed to sleep over at our friends for a whole weekend. We were only allowed to sleep over one day out of the week at a friend's house. I felt like I was living in a prison, which I pretty much was, but you know. On the other hand, my dad didn't really care what my sister and I did as long as we weren't like, you know, doing meth on the curb. He didn't care, but he would always agree with my mom because, as he always says, happy wife, happy life. So whatever my mom said kind of, you know, was the overall decision. The worst part was I wasn't even the one that my mom needed to be worried about. My older sister was way worse than I was. And she didn't even care whenever she would get in trouble. So it was like, I don't know, maybe they just didn't want me to be like her. Well, with that being said, Kevin invited me to a party that he was throwing. And of course I knew that I could not tell my mom, or else I would probably be grounded for even asking her if I could go to a freaking party. So what did I decide to do? I decided that for the first time in my pubescent life, I would be a little bit rebellious and sneak out to go to this party. So I invite my friend Anna over and I tell her about the whole plan. And the plan was I was going to sneak out of my house whenever my parents were asleep. That's kind of like the most classic thing you could do when you're sneaking out. I may or may not have looked up a few YouTube videos on how to sneak out, but you know. Anyway, so my bedroom was right above the garage roof, so I decided that I would climb out my window, jump onto the roof, and then jump down, and we would run over to an Uber that was parked at my neighbor's house, because sadly I could not drive. The plan was honestly just like perfect. So Wednesday, I decide that I need to find something to wear because the party was on Friday. I really never been to a high school party before, but I also wanted to make sure that this outfit would be hot enough to get the attention of Kevin. Well, eventually I find something that I think will work. But of course, as I am trying it on, who barges in my room without knocking? My mother. I literally had no privacy in that house and it was ridiculous. And I literally don't have a top on, no bra or anything. I'm trying on this mini skirt. Anyway, so she comes in my room and she gives me this like stank look. And she was like, where do you think you're going in that skirt? And then she says, better yet, who are you trying to let in that skirt? And I was like, what the fuck? First of all, yeah, that's how my mom was. She always thought that my sisters and I were doing something, having sex, doing drugs. She always thought the worst of us. Love that. Again with the snoring. My dog literally does not stop snoring. Yeah, I'm talking about you. Anyway, so my response was I was trying it on because Anna said that if I grew out of it, she might want it. So then she rolls her eyes and she's like, well, it doesn't fit, so I think you can give it to Anna. Like, girl, shut up. Nobody asked your opinion in the first place. Go do my laundry or something, period. That sounded a little fucked up, but still. So at that point, I start second guessing my whole entire plan. Like one time my older sister got caught smoking pot and my mom put her in some weird summer camp for kids with behavioral issues. Like what the fuck? She also sold my sister's car and got her a bus pass. So I'm not gonna lie, I was definitely nervous. I had to do my eyeliner off camera because I knew it was gonna be a fail if I did it on camera. So anyways, back to the story. So Friday night comes around. I'm super excited, texting Kevin. He's texting me about how excited he is. Anna got a ride to my house after school, and we spent most of the day doing random shit. Like we went swimming for a little bit, we watched a few movies, and Anna had went to a few parties before this, but her parents were kind of strict like mine. She just had the balls to sneak out 24/7 and everything like that. So yeah. Then at 10:30, we decided to finally get ready for this party. We did our makeup, got dressed, but we had pajamas on over our party outfits just because in case my mom barged in like she usually does, we would be prepared. So around 11 o'clock, my parents turned off all the lights and we called the Uber to my neighbor's address. And as we are climbing out my window, we hear a bunch of noises sounding like another window opening, so we stop dead in our tracks. And then all of a sudden, I see that it is my sister and her two best friends who were sleeping over. So she looks at me and she's like, what the fuck are you doing? And then I look at her like, what the fuck are you doing? Because neither of us were supposed to be sneaking out. So don't ask me what I'm doing so you can go and rat to our mom about this. So it turns out that her and I were going to the same party and they were sneaking out at the same time because they saw mine and Kevin. He got me a drink, we started talking. And then he said he wanted us to have some alone time. So what did we do? We went out on the balcony. I thought this kid was going to try and make a move on me, but he didn't. He was literally like a little puss. So I decided that I was going to be the first one to make the move. So as soon as I'm about to kiss him, I hear somebody yell, "Cops are here!" Girl, the one night I decided to sneak out. The one night. This was not in any of the YouTube videos I watched on how to sneak out. So at this point, I am in a full panic mode. All I see is Anna and a bunch of other kids running. So I decide to jump off of a 10-foot, maybe 12-foot up balcony. As we're running through the woods, I see lights flashing behind us, and I hear kids getting grabbed by cops and more sirens. It was just a shit show. And all I can think about is the fact that my mom is going to murder me if I get caught. So I decide to text my sister and ask where the hell she is, because she was hooking up with some guy who parents own the house that the party was at. And she goes, "I'm hiding in the attic. Where are you?" Now, as soon as I was about to answer that text, I definitely shouldn't have been texting and running while the cops were running after us, because eventually I slipped and fell into this little creek and I cut my hand really bad on a rock. Love that for me. So while I'm like pretty much bleeding out, I'm also trying to calm Anna down because Anna cannot handle blood. So she's like about to pass out, you know. Well, once we got to the road, I realized I was covered in fucking blood all over me, all over my face. So we decided to call an ambulance, and we thought that, you know, oh, it's okay if we call an ambulance, we can just give them fake names. That's not what happened. You can't just give an ambulance a fake name, I found out, and you can't just give, like, you know, the doctors a fake name. So once the ambulance showed up, I went into shock from how much blood I was losing, and probably because I was also watching all the blood come out. And then I woke up in the hospital a little bit later. Anna was not there, but my angry ass mother was sitting in the chair next to me, and my sister was staring at me smiling because she didn't get caught. She happened to make it home in time, which I don't even know how. I really don't know how, because I could have swore that it only took us like 20 minutes to run to the street and then get to the hospital. I don't know. My mom never found out about my sister, but I was grounded for 2 months and had to wait to drive till I was 17. Okay, everybody, that is the end of today's story time. If you guys have ever snuck out, let me know down below in the comments. Did you get caught? Did you get away with it? If you guys like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more of me, maybe hit the subscribe button down below. And if you want to know when I post my next video, make sure to click that bell.
Storytime about when I messed up by telling a woman on our first date that her pepper spray is useless. So a friend sets me up with this woman because she thought we have similar hobbies and similar dark humor. We met today for the first time over a coffee and tea. We were actually having a good time, or at least I thought so. We clicked right away and had a lot to talk and laugh about. After like an hour, she suggested to pay for our drinks and go somewhere else for lunch, and I happily agreed. As we were about to pay for our drinks, she started searching her purse for her wallet and put various objects on the counter because she seemed to have a bit of a mess in her purse. One of these objects was the pepper spray. I casually mentioned after leaving the coffee, I'd consider getting a different pepper spray if you plan to defend yourself. This one is quite useless. For a bit of context, I used to test various pepper sprays and tear gas in the military. We were stupid and young, but it was also kind of thrilling. And the product she had was by far the weakest and worst we tested. I just recognized the bottle because it was so bad, and I thought I should let her know that this is probably not the best option to go with. But she obviously didn't know about that because, well, we just met an hour ago. After this comment, our conversation kind of died and she suddenly had a work emergency that she had to go to. It took me a few minutes until I realized that my comment was beyond creepy without any context. I'm definitely not used to meeting new people. Hopefully I haven't traumatized her. I sustained very bad injuries to my face this month. I'm in the stage of healing when the scar tissue has formed, but it's still very tender new skin. I'm going to have very obvious facial scarring for the rest of my life. The injury starts about an inch above my hairline, goes down over my eyebrows, so on that part, hair will not grow. It continues down my cheek where it's the deepest. I'll probably always have an indentation in the fullest part of my cheek. Then it continues to my jawline. In some ways, it's okay. I'm happy it's just cosmetic damage. My friends are super reassuring, telling me how badass and sick it's gonna look. They say I'm still hot as ever, now a little more sexy and mysterious. But in some ways, it really sucks. I know I'm always gonna be seen first as the girl with the scar, and it feels especially bad when people look at me differently. This week, I had to fly home for a family thing. It was a plan I made long before my injury. I wasn't really looking forward to the pity or people making a big deal of it. I'd rather it not be acknowledged. I'd also met with my dermatologist, who said I was at the stage of the scar tissue formation that I no longer should be dressing the wounds. The skin was healing and instead I needed to be applying topical cream and Vaseline to keep the site clean and moist. It also looks a bit ugly. The building scar tissue is very red and tender, and with Vaseline over it, looks slick and shiny. So I get on this flight, I have the window seat and I put my headphones on and drift to sleep when the plane is still boarding. I wake up to this kid, maybe 4 years old, sat next to me, throwing a tantrum. I didn't catch the first part of it and I honestly couldn't understand what he was yelling about. His father said to me, "Can you cover that injury?" I said that my dermatologist recommends that I don't, so no, I don't think I will. He started snapping at me saying, "There is no need to be so rude. That injury is graphic and it's scaring my little one." I said, "This is my face. The only damn face that I've got. It sucks being told I'm so ugly that I can't show my goddamn face in public." He started to backtrack saying, "Just until it's healed." And I said, "It'll always be with me. Maybe teach some fucking compassion and respect instead of telling a girl half your damn age what you think about her face. That's rude." He actually got up after and I think he went to the stewardess about a seat change because a young couple came and sat next to me a few minutes afterwards. I've got to admit, I felt so low that I put on my sunglasses and had a quiet cry for a few minutes. Am I the asshole for not covering up my healing scar and for being confrontational about it?
Am I the asshole for telling my wife the lock on my daughter's door does not get removed until my brother-in-law and his daughters are out of our house? My brother-in-law Sammy lost his home shortly after his divorce 10 months ago. He moved in with us and brought his twin daughters Olivia and Sloan 18 with him a couple of months ago. His sister, my wife, and I have one daughter, Zoe 16, and she and her cousins aren't close but get along fine. Olivia and Sloan have no respect for Zoe's privacy, none. They used to walk into her room and take everything they get their hands on. Makeup, phone, accessories, clothes, school laptop, etc. Zoe complained a lot and I've already asked the girls to respect Zoe's privacy and stop taking things. My wife and Sammy saw no issue with this. After all, they're girls and this is typical teenager girl behavior. I completely disagree. The last straw was when Zoe bought a $60 MAC makeup kit that looks like a paint set that she saved up for over a month and one of the girls, Sloan, took it without permission and ruined it by mixing shades together while using it. Don't know much about makeup, but that's what Zoe said when she found the kit on her bed and was crying. I told my wife and she said she asked Sloan to apologize, but I got Zoe a lock after I found out she was moving valuable belongings out of the house because of this incident. The girls were extremely upset. Sammy asked about it and I straight up told him. He said, "My girls aren't thieves. It's normal that girls of the same age borrow each other's stuff." He said that Zoe could easily get another makeup kit for $15 from Walmart and shouldn't even be buying expensive adult makeup in the first place, and suggested my wife take care of this defect in Zoe's personality, trying to appear older than she is. Oh, this is where the claws come out. He accused me of being overprotective and babying Zoe with this level of enablement. I told him that this is between me and my wife, but she shamed me for putting a lock on Zoe's door for her cousins to see and preventing them from spending time with her, saying I was supposed to treat them like daughters, then demanded I remove it, but I said this lock does not get removed until her brother and his daughters are out of the house. She got mad I was implying we kicked them out and said her family will hate me for this. So I reminded her that I let Sammy and his family move in, which is something her own family refused to do, so she should start with shaming or blaming them for not taking their own son and nieces and granddaughters in. If it wasn't for her family's unwillingness to help, we wouldn't be dealing with this much disturbance at home. Everyone's been giving me and Zoe silent treatment and my wife is very much upset over this. Go dad, good for you. Am I wrong for leaving my son's wedding early after he excluded me from his speech? I have a 23-year-old son, Justin, who got married 2 weeks ago. I wasn't physically involved in Justin's childhood because his mom and I got separated and I had to travel a lot for work, so his stepdad was more available than I was. During his teenage years, Justin started having fights with me, saying stuff like I prioritized work over him and that I'm a Disney parent but was never there for the hard times even though I provided for him financially. But he claimed that it's only because the law made me, which isn't true at all, and I strongly believe his stepdad was feeding lies into him. In the past 3 years, Justin started coming around and I met his then girlfriend, now wife. When I heard that they were getting married, I decided to offer paying for the venue and Justin seemed very appreciative of it. My wife and I attended the wedding and all went well, except when Justin started giving a speech. He kept talking about his mom and stepdad and nowhere did he mention me, not even with a single word of recognition. I was hurt and devastated. I couldn't help but feel this way. I tried acting normal and kept my composure, but I felt so heavy I decided to leave the wedding early. Justin called asking why I left so early. I said I felt sick, but he kept pushing until I told him that I got upset that he didn't mention me or recognize me in his speech. He said that I was being ridiculous to get upset over that. I asked him to respect how I felt, but he argued he wasn't going to lie to make me happy. I asked what he meant because as far as I know, part of his wedding was paid for by me. He said I was unbelievable, then hung up. I called again and we fought on the phone, after which I told him that I felt unappreciated and disrespected. He said he owed me exactly nothing and then hung up. We haven't talked ever since and my wife says I went too harsh on Justin and should apologize for disrespecting his wedding and not showing support by leaving like that.
Am I the asshole for banning my sister from seeing my daughter after she took her to a Tinder date's house? Me, 25 female, and my sister, Lexi, 26 female, have a pretty good relationship. Lexi is also pretty close to my daughter, Emily, 4 female. Lexi has babysat Emily several times over the years, and there's never been a problem. A couple of days ago, my boyfriend and I were going out to celebrate our 2nd anniversary. Lexi offered to babysit for us, and everything seemed to be set up. My boyfriend and I were planning to be gone for about 8 hours. Unfortunately, about 4 hours into the outing, my boyfriend started to get a migraine. I decided to just drop him off at home so he could relax. I sent Lexi a text telling her I was on my way home early. After I got home, I noticed that Lexi's car wasn't in my driveway. I went inside and called out for Lexi and Emily. They were nowhere in the house, so I immediately called Lexi. After I called her 4 times, she finally picked up the phone. I started yelling and demanded to know where the hell she was. She said we would talk after she got back to the house. About 20 minutes later, Lexi and Emily showed up and I put Emily to bed. After she was sound asleep, I exploded on Lexi and told her to start talking. She told me that she was chatting with a random guy from Tinder and he asked her to come over. She said that she knew Emily would just sleep the whole time, so she agreed to come over. She said that everything was fine. Emily just ate some snacks and went to sleep in the guy's spare bedroom. I completely lost it. I cussed her out. I asked her how she could do something so reckless. She got mad and told me it wasn't a big deal. She would never let anything happen to Emily. I told her that she had no right to take my daughter to a random guy's home. She said that she can read people, and she knew that this guy wouldn't hurt anybody. I told her that she's nuts, and she put my daughter in God knows how much danger. I told her I can no longer trust her and that I never want to speak to her again. I also told her that she's never allowed to see Emily again. She started crying and saying that I'm overreacting to the whole thing. I told her that I paid her to protect my daughter, not endanger her so she could go have fun. She continued to cry and beg, but I eventually kicked her out. My mom says that even though Lexi messed up big time, I still overreacted. My mom says that I should reconsider separating Lexi and Emily because they're family. Am I the asshole?
Am I the asshole for making my wife think our son was missing? My wife has a horrible habit that I discovered 2 months ago. We were ordering lunch on the subway and I told her to pick the location that has a drive-thru. That way we don't have to go inside and take the baby out of the car. She told me it's not a big deal to leave the baby in the car and pick it up really quick. I had no idea she ever did this. I said I wasn't comfortable even for a minute and she told me she's been doing it since he was born. I was floored. We don't live in a horrible area, but it's also not super safe either, and I told her to never do this again. She told me she never thought about the potential dangers and that she would stop doing it. Well, yesterday I spotted her car at a gas station near our place. Am I the asshole for making my wife think our son was missing? When I got there, I was furious to find our son in his car seat and the car wasn't even locked. I decided to take my son and put him in my car. I then drove to the other side of the gas station parking lot and waited for my wife to come out. It took 6 minutes, and when she saw he was gone, she looked stunned and started frantically looking around and crying. When I saw her pull her phone out, I pulled around to her. She looked extremely relieved to see our son, but then quickly turned to anger, asking me why I took him and did that to her. I said she needed to learn her lesson, and she promised to stop leaving him in the car. It was so easy for me to take him. No one else at the gas station even noticed. She called me cruel and psychotic and is wanting an apology. Am I the asshole for donating my ex's things to Goodwill? My 28 male boyfriend and I, 32 female, broke up over Halloween weekend. We were together for 2.5 years and had lived together about 2 of those years. He moved out November 2nd, but not all of his belongings were able to fit in his car. He was planning on gathering the rest of his things a few days later, but before then I had decided to cut off contact with him. Before I did so, I called to tell him that he needed to get the rest of his things that weekend while I was away visiting family out of state. He agreed, but whenever I came home, I was annoyed and not surprised to see his things were still at my house. I then decided to wait a few weeks to see if he made any efforts.
Am I wrong for ruining my sister-in-law's gender reveal? So I, 31 male, have 3 beautiful daughters, 7, 5, and 2, which for some reason people in my life think I'm not completely happy with. If I had $1 for every time I heard, I bet you wish you had a son, or are you ever gonna try again for a boy, I'd be a millionaire. Look, if my wife got pregnant again and had a boy, my reaction would be the same as the other 3. In my opinion, as long as your child is healthy, who honestly cares? Oh, props to this dad. I never hear guys talk like this. It's so refreshing to hear. The worst and most annoying people towards my wife, give me a son, are my sister-in-law, 29, who has 4 boys and now pregnant with her 5th child, and my mother-in-law. Last Sunday, we were at my mother-in-law's for Sunday lunch, and my sister-in-law said after dessert to come out to the back garden as they had a balloon to announce the gender of their new baby. Well, long story short, she's having another boy. After everyone congratulated her, she made her way to us and said, I bet you wish just once it would be blue for you guys, then turned to my wife and said, it's never too late to try again. It royally pissed me off because my oldest was in earshot. I turned to her and said, well, actually, Alice, I wouldn't give one of my daughters dirty socks for what boys were in Europe, and the fact that you base your love on your child's gender says a lot about you as a mother. I don't need a son, so I suggest you take your advice and stick it. She stuttered for a second and then burst into tears, saying I was putting her and her kids down. The mood was ruined, and after that, we left. Since then, my in-law said she deserves an apology, and it's been a long-running joke, so I shouldn't have driven my sister-in-law to tears. Wait, what is it called? Can't take what you... Eat what you dish, can't take what you dish. I can't remember the saying.
We hate the most.
Got me going crazy. You got me going